Hello everyone! Today we're going to be jumping back into Historic Brawl with a Calix Guided by Fate deck. Now Calix is going to be an aggro-based enchantment deck where really we focus on getting Calix out onto the battlefield and using his ability to create token copies of non-legendary enchantments we control. Now we can only do this once every turn, but those copies are definitely going to add up and give us lots of value over time. So, taking a look at the main deck, we've got a couple of fun things that we want to be copying. So, one thing that's quite fun for us is actually some new additions from the newest set. So, we've got 3 blind mice here. If we actually create a token copy of 3 blind mice, when that hits the next chapter, we can copy the token and get all of our mice that way. So, this is very fun if we can copy it with Calix. Additionally, we also have the newly added Yenna. Now here, we can actually pay 2 mana and tap to choose an enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent we control, so we can only copy each enchantment that we have once, which is fine, but then we create a token copy of it, except that token isn't legendary, so we can do this with legendary permanents, not that that really matters. But we get the added bonus where if that token is an aura, we can untap Yenna and scry 2, and then do that again if we'd like. So this is a really good value card as well from the new set. We also have a couple of other fun things. So we've got here Utopia Sprawl, which is going to be really good early game ramp. We've got Grasp of Fate, which is a new one of our exile enchantments, but Sealed from Existence and Prison Realm, and the whole suite is really good. Karmic Justice is also a really fun new addition to the deck. Whenever a spell or ability our opponent controls destroys a non-creature permanent we control, we can destroy one of their permanents. So that's really good for especially our auras on things. If our opponents kill an enchanted creature or gets destroyed, we have our opportunity to go ahead and destroy something else, which is pretty strong. Now, aside from that, we just have a bunch of ways to get extra value off those tokens we're making. So we've got Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, Primal Vigor as well. So all of those things are also going to help advance our game plan. But we're definitely focusing on the early game. Here we have a bunch of auras and a bunch of helpful utility creatures that are going to decrease the cost of enchantments, or enchantment creatures that are going to give us some extra value as well. We do have some card draw in the deck as well, whether it's the Cetessan Champion, Enchantress's Presence, or Sithis. So just like when we were playing that Sithis deck, except we have a much greater focus on that aggro game plan, once again, because if our opponent can stabilize and keep Calix off the board, it's going to be very difficult for us to get ahead. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck. If you guys have been enjoying my content, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on my latest videos, and if you do enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like. Let's go ahead and see how this deck does. Alright, on the play this time. And this looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and keep. So, opponent's playing against a mono blue deck, and we've got a Destiny Spinner, so I view that as a major win for us. And opponent's already tapped out, so we get the free Destiny Spinner. And we'll never have to worry about our creatures or enchantments being countered. Easy peasy. Yeah, Brawl, that's a fun one. Calix, +1/+1 counter on the spinner. Swing out. Opponent's gonna take 3 here. Next turn, we can go ahead and play out 1 enchantment so we can get a +1/+1 counter on Calix and swing. And by 1 enchantment, it's going to be Smothering Tithe. Opponent's reading what Destiny Spinner does. Yes, they need a way to deal with the Destiny Spinner, but they won't be able to do it this turn. +1/+1 counter there. Swing out. We're gonna make a copy of Smothering Tide. Put an additional +1/+1 counter on Calix. Again, the Smothering Tithe copies are going to be really good for ramp for us. And it looks like we've got it. Alright, so we've got our opponent going first here. Playing up against Shieldred. Now this is an okay starting hand, but we do lack white mana, so I do think we're going to take a mulligan here. We're definitely going to be able to find a better starting hand for us. We do want to be a little bit cautious of all of our opponent's removal, since they are going to be playing a mono black deck. And of course we want to be careful with our own card draw as well, just because it is Shieldred. Making sure that we can actually deal with that once she gets onto the battlefield. Let's take the mulligan. This is going to be a better start. So we'll keep Wolf Willow Haven, gives us some ramp and better access to green. We'll keep this. Now, of course, we have to be careful with our Calix, but I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot. I think of the best draws that we could see here, something to deal with Shieldred once it enters the battlefield would be very strong for us. Just to start with a Plains. It's going to enable the untapped castle, but we're going to have to go Brushland next turn so we can play Wolf Willow. Yep, Brushland, Wolf Willow. I think we'll go for Wolf Willow on Brushland. That way we have a non-self-damaging green source here, so this is green colorless. Instead of, you know, either green or white for one in colorless. Dormant Grove might be the play next turn because we'll have 4 mana. I think a Hollowed Haunting is going to be what we end up going with instead, though, just because that's going to be much better for us in the long run as we're playing all of our enchantments. We're going to be taking some damage for now. Ossification is a perfect find off the top. Let's go Hollowed Haunting. So now, next turn, we can go Dawn of Hope, Ossification, hit Shieldred. That could be really good for us. And then that gives us some of our tokens as well. Interesting. Alright, well, let's go Iganjo here. We're gonna go Ossification. Make a Spirit. Hit that creature. Let's go Dawn of Hope. End the turn here. Now we have 2 2/2s. That makes blockers a little bit better for us. If our opponent doesn't find the land again, we're still not worried about Shieldred. If they do, we've kind of gotten ahead of them. Primal Vigor might be the play next. Just doubling our tokens off Hollowed Haunting. Yep, looks like we've got it. Alright, so we've got our opponent going first on the mirror matchup. I'm going to keep this opening hand, though. Arboreal Grazer, starting with some early ramp. We're going to just start with a forest and pass. With Azusa's Many Journeys, we can actually do our ramping next turn. We're going to see Calix this turn, most likely. Utopia Sprawl, interesting. Then Calix. Opponent's down to only 3 cards in hand. We have our own Utopia Sprawl as well. Let's see. We go Castle. Utopia Sprawl. We'll pick white. a Zeus's Many Journeys, play a Plains. And now we should have evened things up, though our opponent does have the advantage of having been on the play. So they are going to get to copy Utopia Sprawl when they hit us with Calix this turn. Okay, Botanical Brawler. Copy the rune, maybe? They do, they copy the rune. Let's go Weaver of Harmony. Calix. +1/+1 counter on our Calix. Make that larger. Alright, Calix can no longer attack and block, and his activated abilities can't be activated, so we'll have to get rid of Planar Disruption. This is going to be the biggest impact turn for our opponent. Next turn, we get to remove 2 things with Touch the Spirit Realm, which is going to be really strong for us. No blocks. We'll have to take this. Down to 7. Copy the rune. Probably put that on the Spirited Companion. Yep, keep Calix safe, because they know that we're going to be wanting to remove the Calix. Put a +1/+1 counter there. Alright, go into our full control. I'm gonna pay here. Stay in full control. Let's go ahead and put another +1/+1 counter there. Copy this. Pay for the copy. Get rid of Calix as well. Things are looking pretty good for us now. Of course, our opponent can replay the Calix. If they do, we've got Reprobation. Could be good. Alright, well, we'll kill the creature we can. Take 4. Copy the rune on Calix, yep. Alright, well, we go Reprobation. Hit Calix. +1/+1 counter on our Weaver here. And then play out Catilda as a 7/7. And we're not gonna do any attacking here. We do have to keep back blockers. Rune of Might might be good for us. Okay. Iena will be a problem. But isn't yet. I'm gonna guess our opponent's not gonna attack us this turn. We're gonna be swinging with Catilda. So let's go Rune of Might on Catilda. +1/+1 counter on Catilda. We want more life gain. Draw a card. I like Sithis as well. We'll play Sithis. Gives us another enchantment, another +1/+1 counter here. Swing out for 12. We're gonna take action here. Go into full control, make a copy of this. We're gonna pick Yenna here. +1/+1 counter will spread the love, send that onto Sithis. Here we'll pay 1, copy this trigger. We'll get rid of the Arboreal Grazer as well. And now we have our opponent down at 13, we're up at 15. Catilda will swing for lethal with flying. Opponent sacrifices Calix here. It's looking like we're in a pretty good spot. Again, 3 cards in hand. They can only find a creature here. Elesh Norn, okay. Yep, I'm actually not concerned about this. I'll be able to pay the 8 life for the Elesh Norn. Gain 1 life, draw a card. And it looks like we've got it. Alright, opponent going first. We're up against Thalion the Gitrog. We can keep this. Start with Paladin class. We'll see, we might play the Gate if we don't have a play for next turn. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and play that tap land. So we'll lose 3 life each time we play Calix. Sally is making our non-creatures more expensive. We'll just get Catilda out onto the battlefield. Okay, opponent can have that damage. And I'm thinking we go Naturalist, land. We can play out Calix, but I think the Cetessan Training on Catilda is going to be better. Deal 5, gain 5. So this is just going to swing the clock in our favor. Reign of Truth next turn could be good. Enchantress's Presence as well. Yep, no blocks. Our clock is better than our opponent's currently. I'm gonna go Enchantress's Presence, since that's gonna go ahead and give us some more options. Draw a card. Envoy is also gonna be good. We're gonna pump Catilda up to 12, deal 12 damage, gain 12 life. Again, if our opponent can't deal with this Catilda, we should be able to close out the game here. And we've got it. Alright, so we've got our opponent going first, and we're playing up against a Krenko deck. Honestly, this is going to be a fine opening hand. We don't have access to green, but we have Ossification and Banishing Light. And we found a green source. We don't need that right now, so we can go ahead and bottom that. Interesting. Alright, I think we're gonna go ahead and get Calix out onto the battlefield and put a +1/+1 counter on him. I think this is gonna have the best potential for turning into something pretty good. No blocks. We let the damage through. Looking good. But they do have a way to remove him, so we'll go ahead and move Calix back to the command zone. Now, we've got a couple of different options for what we want to do here. I think we're going to start with the Spirited Companion, draw a card. Find a layer of the Hydra, then Ossification. Get rid of the creature. Make everything a little bit more difficult for our opponent. We have Banishing Light if they play out Kranko. See, Bandit Lord is also going to be good to get rid of. And I think we'll do that. We can always Elk the Kranko, deal 1 damage here. Alright, lots of equipment here. I think we want to go Calix. I'm gonna put a +1/+1 counter on the companion. Deal damage. Glittering Stockpile, alright. A Braid on Calix. That's fine. This is why we put the +1/+1 counter on the companion there. Let's go Grove. Heliod. +1/+1 counter on the companion. We're building up a pretty strong dog here. Again, as we keep getting more mana, we're going to be in a better and better spot. Kranko. Yep, has haste. He can make a bunch of goblins. That's fine. And by a bunch of goblins, I mean 1. Let's go ahead... Do I want to... No, we're just going to turn Kranko into an elk. Kranko is an elk now. Makes a single hasty goblin. We draw a card. Let's see. If we play this, we won't have enough for Calix, so we don't really have to do that. Instead, I think we'll draw a card. Seal from Existence is good to have. +1/+1 counter, move to combat. We'll attack. And then I'm going to use Heliod to give us lifelink here. 5 damage, gain 5 life. +1/+1 counter. And then we are going to be transforming our Dormant Grove, giving everything Vigilance next turn. It's going to be pretty strong. Spirited Companion is an enchanted creature, which is going to synergize pretty well with having our Calix. Interesting. Let's go Castle. Play out Calix here. Put an extra +1/+1 counter on the Spirited Companion. Let's give Audacity to our Heliod. We'll put a +1/+1 counter on our Calix. Another +1/+1, get out of the 3 damage range, and we're going to swing like this. Alright, those are gone now. See. Let's copy Vanishing Light here. And which one of these is going to be the most annoying? I think giving creatures haste is probably going to be most annoying. Put another +1/+1 counter on Calix. Yeah, opponent says good game. We've got it. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed. So as we were able to see, this deck is a very powerful aggro deck. Some of the things that I would recommend is it's definitely going to be beneficial to have a starting hand that has some form of targeted permanent removal enchantment. Right? If we can copy that with Calix, that's going to be really strong for us, and the game can get out of control really fast. Other high-value enchantments that you definitely want to get onto the battlefield, Smothering Tithe can close out the game super quickly as well, and then anything card draw related, so whether that's Sithis, whether that's the Setessan Champion, or Enchantress's Presence, having the ability to draw cards off your enchantments is going to turn this from an aggro deck into a deck with a ton of sustain. Now, other options, and lower on the scale for things that you'll want to do, is the Utopia Sprawl styled ramp thing. So Utopia Sprawl, we've got Wolf Willow Haven, we even have Gift of Paradise here for some life gain. We can continually use ramp to have stronger turns in the late game, but we really do want to play towards the early, so I wouldn't focus on these if you're already made it to the mid game. Now, that being said, Calix is a huge threat towards your opponents and is going to be the primary target for a lot of removal. So if you do have any ways to protect Calix in hand, you're going to be all the more better. So things like Ailseed out on the battlefield to give protection is going to be really powerful. Just remember, protection from either white or green, depending on what auras you have on Calix, if you put any on him, will cause those auras to go into the graveyard. So that's a little niche thing with protection there to be careful about. And we also have Karamitra's Blessing as well to protect the Calix a little bit. So if you have those, definitely play around holding those up to protect Calix. Other major threat in this deck is, again, sometimes our opponent's simply not going to let us have Calix on the battlefield, but Catilda here is going to be a growing threat over the course of the game. Doesn't matter if we have no cards in hand, as long as we have Catilda on the battlefield. Flying gives us that evasion that we want. Lifelink is going to help us stay in the game for longer, and protection from vampires is just a fun little added benefit. Not that that particularly matters in many cases, but this is going to be huge depending on the number of enchantments we control, and definitely worth keeping if we see it around. Aside from that, everything else is pretty straightforward. You saw we just play out our enchantments, we get a whole bunch of value by copying things with Calix, or we just beat down our opponents by having those enchantment synergies, and then we make it towards that end of the game. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like, and if you have any ideas for another deck you'd like to see me play, why don't you let me know in a comment down below. I'll see you all next time.